Hello everyone, Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube segment I'm going to be dissertating and talking about the 2013 AFC South Preview. Well, let me start with my team I'm going to predict for first place. I'm going to go with the Indianapolis Colts. I don't think last year was an aberration or fluke. It was a season where many thought it was going to be a reclamation project or rebuilding period for the Colts, and as it turned out, it actually wasn't. You know, some teams have all the luck, and in this case, the Colts had Andrew Luck. You know, he had a very good season, and he led the team and helped them finish strong. They went 5-1 in their final 6 games. I think providential would be an understatement for this team. This was a team that was number 26 ranked team in defense, and they had a minus 12 turnover differential. And these are really, mind-boggling numbers for a team that compiled an 11-5 record. I think the way I perceive this is that if the Colts were able to do this and have that much success with those numbers, well, an improved team should be 11-5 anyway, this coming season, and I believe they can improve on their positioning in the division and win it. So they had added multiple starters and drafted a number of players, and got cornerback Greg Toller is one new addition to this team, and I believe he will bolster the team as far as the defense goes. And this will be a team to be reckoned with and may potentially go deep in the postseason. Second place, I'm going to go with the Houston Texans. No shocker there, but I'm going to go with them at 9-7, and I see the Texans as a team where they're going to be good this season, but not necessarily phenomenal or great. Last season came to an abrupt, kind of ending in the postseason at the hands of New England Patriots. That not necessarily a thrashing, but a pretty decisive loss they had to them. This is a team that started off on a rampage last season. I believe started 11-1, and they finished the last 4 games. They lost 3 out of the last 4. I think the defense was somewhat exploited. They wound up losing, giving up about 28 points, per game, in those last 4. I think like 100 and it's like 110 points or so they had relinquished in the last 4 games. And the defense, to me, showed some vulnerability. Now, I know their main proponents are going to return, including defensive end J.J. Watt, who had 20.5 sacks last season. They will have Matt Shaw back, and I just think they lost a little bit as well. Though they lost they've lost a number of defensive players, and I really including Alan, I believe it's Alan Bell, I'm going to say, and Glover Quinn. Anyway. This is just a team where they could still be perennial contenders for a title, but I just think the Colts, the fact that they were far from stagnant in the offseason, coupled with the fact that the Texans, I think teams are kind of figuring out ways to formulate plans and schemes to defeat them and cut through their defense. I believe they might take a step back this year, so I'm going to stick with them, number 2. At 9-7, and I'm going to go number 3. I'm going to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars. We know the Jaguars had a deplorable season last year. They went 2-14, and the only 2 wins they had came against divisional opponents. So they were 0-14 against teams. I should say. They were winless against teams that they didn't play in their division. So to me, this is a team that really has some work to do The team had 20 sacks last season. That's obviously not going to cut it if you want to be competitive in this league. I believe they were like last in the league in sacks. They were one of the worst teams, I believe, in sacks. Relinquished to their quarterback. They going to have to do a little better as far as the protection goes. They relinquished about nearly 28 points per game last season, and in the bottom 5 in points allowed. Now, the fact that that their record was so hard is somewhat attributed to the fact that Maurice Jones-Drew, one of the premier running backs in football, missed 10 games due to injury. Now, in 2011, the season before last, he accounted for about 48% of the offensive yards. So, they definitely had some loss. I believe they actually had more total yardage in 2012 as opposed to 2011, but Maurice Jones-Drew is such a strong, component of this offense that it shows how desperately they need him. If he could stay injury-free this season, then, maybe they'll do a little better, than the 5-11 I have for them. Excuse me. And, they will, Jacksonville Jaguars are just such a team where it's really, there's just so much, I hate to be too derogatory on one team, but there's just so much against them. This is a team that has been averaged 15-point-something points the last 2 seasons. Not just the average for those 2 years, but those single individual seasons. One season was 15-point-something, another season 15-point-something. They did not average even 16 points per game in either of those 2 seasons. So they definitely, between, their quarterback battle, could we get, somebody that can, really, have a productive standout year? It's really going to be predicated on how their quarterback situation goes, and if whoever, wins the battle is actually going to be able to have, a somewhat, I guess, at least a respectable, productive season. Alright, last but not least, I have the Tennessee Titans as the cellar dwellers in this division. 5-11, I guess you could say I have Jacksonville winning the tiebreaker. Just an abhorrent year for the Titans last year. It's almost miraculous they even won, 6 games last season. 26 in total offense, 22nd in passing offense. They were, they really, they got dismantled in a number of the games they played. They had 8 games in which they relinquished 30 or more points. Now, the defense started to pick things up a little bit. Like the last 7 games, they averaged around 23 points per game surrendered. But even that average, it is above, the average amount of, points, per team, per game. So that shows that, even in that period, they weren't really, they were still a little bit worse than being, a mediocre defense. One of the, good notes last season, wide receiver Kendall Wright, he was tied for the league lead among rookie wide receivers in receptions with 64. So there were, there are some bright spots on this team. If Kenny Britt, stay out of trouble and he's healthy and he can, maximize his potential. Obviously Tennessee's going to need more than 45 receptions out of him this season if they want to be competitive or make a possible playoff run. They acquired really strong safety Bernard Pollard last season. He should be, a real, tenacious defender and somebody from the world champion Baltimore Ravens. He can, help bring, winning attitude to this team. And also the Titans acquired Kevin Walter, wide receiver, and he may really help this team immensely. Especially as far as his durability goes. He's only missed 3 games in the last 9 seasons, so he has a very good chance of staying healthy and being a very productive receiver for this team. A lot of the Titans' success this season obviously is going to be dependent upon the development of their young quarterback. Jake Locker, and it's going to be interesting to see if he can escalate, his play from last season. If he could at least put up, I guess we could say, respectable mediocre stats, the team could go, at least, be passable this season, and as far as their record goes. But I'm going to stick with them at 5-11. The Titans do have to play Houston and Indianapolis 2 times each, 4 times total between the two, and that could very easily, they could be 0-4 in those games. So Titans got a little bit of a tough road ahead of them, and the team, got a number of weapons on them this year, and Mike Munchak, the coach, got plethora of people who he wanted as far as personnel goes, on players on the team. It's just a matter of they're all going to be working and all on the same page at the same time. So anyway, I just wanted, I'm going to get you my, show you my picks, review them one moment. I'm on kind of a low budget here, people. I got to get to my screen, and I'll bring the camera over there momentarily. You can see my picks one more time. Here we go. So I explained before, we're going to go with the Colts. First place 11-5, Houston Texans 9-7, Jacksonville Jaguars third 5-11, Tennessee Titans fourth, and last place 5-11, lose the tiebreaker with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And people, stay tuned. The next YouTube prediction segment for the NFL, I'll be dissertating and talking about preview for the 2013 AFC West. Until next time, people, stay well.